Hey kids, John here. I've been asked to talk about method books, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about a couple in depth, describe them a little bit, talk about how to use them, and how to progress your way through the book and become a better player by using the book or the books. If all you've had experience with is some type of banned book 1, maybe only book 2, I recommend this book, the Herbert Clark Elementary Studies book. It's a very good book. It's got an introduction, a lot of information, hints, very helpful to have hints, right? Talks about position of the mouthpiece on the lips, commencing the tone, method of breathing, talks about music as an art, and then it goes into some explanations of things you're going to see in music. Here's your first lesson, and it's going to help you understand names of notes, how many beats or how long notes are. It goes over a lot of very basic information, and it's a progressive book, and I like books that are progressive. It's nice to start at the front and get to the back and be a better player. Again, you've got lessons that are showing you different aspects of playing the trumpet. This is a great book to get because as it progresses, things become a little bit more difficult, but you're going to read all of this information up here as you're going through the book because it's explaining things. Not only is it explaining things in the book, but it's explaining how to play, how to use the book, and that's very key. Also a great book to sight read out of. It's a progressive book again, talking about different key signatures now, explaining these things. It's explaining subdivisions and how to count. Relatively complex at the very end. Very valuable for a young player or a player that doesn't have a lot of experience. Not an expensive book. Cannot stress enough the need to have an Arbenz Complete Conservatory method for trumpet. They come in different editions that have different covers on them, so yours won't necessarily look like this. With all books, read what it has to say. It talks about how to use this book. And that's very, very key to our growth, is looking at this type of information. It does start out quite simple, and this book progresses much quicker than the Clark Elementary Studies book does. The first section of the book can always be used as a way of warming up, so you can play different ones each day. Once you get to number 11, I would go ahead and play all the way through until we hit number 50. And as you can see, you're playing a little bit more complex music now. The way this book is set up is it's set up in chapters. I would play the first 2 exercises out of each chapter. For week 1, we've warmed up on one of these exercises in the very front of the book and maybe played one of these that is somewhere 1 through 50 of these exercises. Then we play 1 and 2 of the studies on syncopation, 1 and 2 of the slur studies, 1 and 2 on the scale studies, 1 and 2 on the minor scale studies, number 1 on the chromatics, the first line of number 1 on the ornamentation gruppetto study, the first line of number 1 on the interval study, the first triplet study, the first line of the major and minor chords, the first line of the dominant 7th, the first line of the diminished 7th, the first triple tonguing study, and the first double tonguing study. And then one of the first 4 or 3 songs, and play a song each day. What you're doing is you're going to play those studies, 1 and 2, the first line of, out of this book in those sections. And then the next week, you're going to go to 3 and 4, the second line. And then the next week, 5 and 6, and the third line. You are going to progressively move your way through this book. That is how to approach this book. You're playing out of different sections. So you're going to progress through the book until you've gotten to a point where you can play quite proficiently, and then you can add. And this may be a year or even 2. Yes, a year or even 2 in your future, you will get to the characteristic studies. always read the information. It is going to explain things and tell you how to do things. And the characteristic studies are very technical exercises. So you have to get to the point where you have developed skills that allow you to play these. And finally, in the very back of the book, you're going to find the hardcore cornet solos. And after you've done 3 to 4 years in this book, you're going to start attacking these cornet solos. Once you can play one of these cornet solos, you can play pretty much almost anything. This is a book that develops skills, and it does it progressively by taking you through sections of the book, starting with 1 and 2, then 3 and 4, then 5 and 6. If you have a large study book and you're working out of different sections, I highly recommend using paper clips to quickly mark each section where you are. So if I could only own one book, this would be the book. If I could add one more book, it would be the 27 Groups of Exercises for Trumpet and Cornet by Earl D. Irons. It's a fantastic book that develops lip flexibility, breath control, and your muscle or muscle memory and range. It's got an extremely long foreword. Read it. And now it starts talking about how he believes our bodies operate while we're doing these exercises. Very worthwhile reading. Then he starts explaining how to use the book. Read that. Group 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then he talks about how to deal with 5, 6, 7, and it progresses. More information on how to use the book and when to move on. Here we have what is getting into the end section of the book and some very advanced exercises. I don't worry about part 2. We've dealt with that in the Arbin book. I simply use the part 1 up to 27 for the flexibilities. Incredible book. I would add it to my arsenal immediately. Another great type of book to get is an etude book. These can supplement what you're learning in the Arbins to help develop specific type of drills or skills. And these books, some of them are progressive, some of them are simply just different skill sets that challenge what you've learned in the Arbin book. You're looking at C flat, B double flat, A double flat, oh great, G double flat, my favorite note. So these things are challenging certain aspects of your playing. Do you see any rests? Are you seeing rests here? Not a lot of rests. So what they're doing is challenging endurance, double tonguing things. Etude books, great books to get. Another fantastic series of books are the Herbert Clark books. This is the technical studies. This is also a supplemental book. This is developing different skills. Here in the beginning we've got chromatic studies. Information in the book. Read it. Tells you what to do. Each of these studies throughout the book has some type of information about how to approach the study. These are helping your fingers really be able to move quick, and it's also helping you find patterns. Here we go. Arpeggios using the chord of the diminished seventh. Diminished seventh, dominant exercises, all kinds of stuff in here. What's cool about books like this is you also have recommendations in the back of some of them for other books, and that's pretty hip. I recommend the Clark books. Here's a characteristic study. This is going to be very similar to the back of the Arbin book, just different challenges. There's also tonguing drills in this book, so it's kind of a supplement to the Arbin, maybe a continuation. If you want to play some things that are different than the Earl D. Irons book, you've got the Charles Collin Advanced Lip Flexibilities, and this happens to be the complete volume 1, 2, and 3. There is a lot of information. Fear, unnecessary, tongue plays vital part, disproving theories, tongue position, embouchure security, vital body resistance. Some interesting reading, okay? Reducing pressure, effective phobias, evil of brute force. There is a ton of information in the beginning of this book before you even get to it. It's got a section on how to warm up, build with natural gifts. Then you've got a whole bunch of different kinds of lip flexibility or Sometimes people call some of these velocity studies, whatever. And it's a great book. You can kind of pick and choose each day, read what he has to say about how to use the book. E above high C, F above high C, F sharp above high C, G sharp above high C. All right. A above high C. Very worth having, especially the information up front. Another type of book that can help you organize some of your daily practice is Claude Gordon, Daily Trumpet Routines, and you'll see other people that have daily trumpet routines or trumpet routines. I can't stress enough, read these things. It's telling you what to do. Practice this hundreds of times. Woo! That sounds fun. All right, so these books are telling you how to use the material in the book. And this is definitely getting pretty progressive here. So you have to pay attention to what they're saying in the early part of the book to play the later part of the book. But a daily routine book like this, great idea. I would highly recommend solos. Here's one for C trumpet, Legend. The Canon, great solo. Here's an interesting one for C trumpet, but it also has a B flat part. So you can have it in B flat or C. What I would do is I would listen to solos and find out what I like. Duet books, great stuff. Good for reading, good for practicing out of. I would add a duet book or two to my arsenal. Now, if you're headed towards the commercial side of playing and you're saying, wow, that's great, all this stuff is fantastic, but what about me? Well, there are books out there that talk about big band playing, lead trumpet playing, so you can search those out. If you're looking at jazz playing, the Bugs Bauer Bop Duets, Volume 1, 2, and 3 are actually fun and a blast to play. Really great books. So then you can read the top line, then read the bottom line. It helps you with some jazz phrasing, gets you familiar with jazz language. Then to get in deeper, I would grab a transcription book where you've got transcribed solos from different players. And the Fats Navarro book, get up there, okay? He's playing lines up there. Some of the transcription books you want to take a look at maybe before you get it. Transcription books for the jazz player, excellent source of phrasing and language. Then there's books if you're really into learning improvisation. This just is one of them. It's an example of this type of book. And when you delve into this type of book, you're going to be finding absolute direction. It is a study book. This is like you sat down in a class and you were assigned this book. You need to read it front to back and work out of it in the manner they're prescribing, at least the first time through this book. After you've gone through the book one entire time, then you might go back and do some things and expand on what you were getting out of this book. It's a how-to book, and it's a step-by-step, if you will, and explains a lot of different aspects of playing jazz. These can be very inspirational, and what you're going to do is you're going to take these exercises that they're asking you to play, and you get to play along with the rhythm section. These are awesome for a person that's learning improvisation. Another type of book that I think is really cool to get because it's got so much information in it. Clinical Notes on Trumpet Playing by Roger Ingram. And the thing that's cool about it is there's just great information in it. You know, it's talking about enjoying the journey, health, diet, exercise, teeth, warm-up, warm-down, routine practice, playing for fun, getting familiar with style, listening, recording, choosing your first trumpet mouthpiece, trumpets, mouthpieces for the beginner, basic books, method books, exercise books, etude books, becoming a quick reader. Massive information. Worth taking a look at. As you saw, there's a lot of different types of study material out there that work in a progressive manner. I think it's great to develop these skills through working with method books. And I advocate internalizing these skills like scales, chords, arpeggios, flexibility studies, range studies, tonguing. All these things can be internalized so that you can play all kinds of different studies from memory and make things up on your own to challenge yourself. And it frees you up from having to have the book with you. So if you have 15 minutes somewhere, you can work on something. So getting away from the book is great, but always check back in. Use the book to make sure that you're doing things correctly and that you don't have any bad habits sneaking in. I hope some of this helped. Take it easy, kids.